The city of New York shimmered beneath the bruised light of dusk, where glass towers reflected dying gold, and the hum of ambition filled the air like static. It was a world of wealth, gleaming, polished, untouchable. But beneath the glow of luxury penthouses and champagne laughter lay shadows that money could not bleach. And in one of those towers, where the Vaughn name was carved into the skyline itself, a young woman stood staring out at a horizon she could no longer trust. Her name was Isabella Vaughn, and she had been born into secrets. From the outside, she was everything a tabloid could worship, the daughter of Jonathan Vaughn, a billionaire real estate magnate whose empire stretched across continents. She was beauty framed in legacy. Tall, graceful, eyes the color of pale blue glass, the kind that saw everything but revealed nothing. Her image adorned magazines, whispered about at charity galas, and envied across social feeds. But those who looked closer, if anyone dared, might have seen the fracture behind her calm. That night, as the city trembled with sirens and summer heat, Isabella felt the weight of a truth pressing at the edges of her world. She had grown up believing in the fairy tale, a father's power, a mother's elegance, a destiny paved with privilege. But fairy tales had rules, and hers was about to break. Inside the Vaughn penthouse, chandeliers burned like small suns. Guests in diamonds and velvet murmured over champagne as a string quartet played something soft and old. Jonathan Vaughn stood near the center of it all, tall, silver-haired, a presence that demanded silence even when he smiled. He was the kind of man who filled rooms without effort, whose success could suffocate or seduce depending on how close one stood. Isabella moved through the party like a ghost wrapped in silk. Every greeting was a performance, every smile a disguise. To the world, this was celebration, another acquisition, another billion-dollar deal. To Isabella, it was theater, a stage where love and deception were always perfectly choreographed. She caught her reflection in one of the tall windows. Flawless makeup, glittering gown, the image of the perfect heiress, and yet she barely recognized the woman looking back. That woman had everything, and nothing. He appeared by accident or fate, as some stories prefer. At the edge of the ballroom stood a man who didn't belong. No tailored tux, no golden cufflinks. Just a quiet confidence, a simple black suit, and eyes that saw right through her. His name was Ethan Cole, a name she wouldn't forget even when she tried. Ethan wasn't from her world. He worked for Vaughn Enterprises, or more precisely, for the parts of it that no one spoke about publicly. A senior financial analyst, sharp-minded, born far from privilege, whose brilliance had earned him a position close to the empire's core. When their eyes met, something shifted. A spark that neither of them expected. A pause in the endless masquerade. He didn't look at her like a prize. He looked at her like a question. "Enjoying the show?" she asked when he finally approached. Her tone wrapped in irony. He smiled, faint but genuine. "It's a beautiful cage," he said quietly. "But a cage all the same." The words struck her harder than she wanted to admit. From that night on, the invisible threads of destiny began to weave between them. Delicate, dangerous, unstoppable. Days bled into nights. Isabella found herself drawn to Ethan, first out of curiosity, then out of need. He was unlike anyone in her orbit. Grounded, moral, unwilling to play the game of power her family worshipped. With him, she could breathe. They met in quiet corners, the rooftop gardens above the city, the dim cafe tucked behind Fifth Avenue, the old library where no one cared who her father was. And each meeting stripped away another layer of pretense. In those stolen hours, she wasn't Isabella Vaughn, heiress to an empire. She was just a woman, fragile, searching, free. But love born in shadows rarely survives the light. The Vaughn empire had secrets, and Ethan was about to uncover the one that would burn everything down. It began with a file innocuous, buried deep within the company's encrypted systems. Ethan hadn't meant to find it, but once he did, he couldn't unsee it. Numbers that didn't add up, offshore accounts, false charities, a web of shell corporations hiding something darker. At first, he thought it was corruption, another billionaire laundering his sins. But then he saw the names, people who had vanished, properties that had changed hands after mysterious accidents. And at the center of it all, Jonathan Vaughn. The man was laundering not just money, but silence. Ethan knew the truth could destroy him, but he also knew it would destroy Isabella's world. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, the empire's shadows began to notice. When Isabella learned the truth, it didn't come from Ethan. It came from her father. Jonathan stood in his office, skyline burning behind him. His voice was calm, but his eyes were ice. "I know you've been seeing him," he said, "and I know what he's done." She tried to speak, but he silenced her with a look. "He's been digging where he shouldn't, snooping into things that could ruin us all. You have no idea who that man really is." Isabella felt the room tilt. Lies or truth, she couldn't tell anymore. But then her father's final words sealed it. "I trusted you, Isabella. Don't make me regret it." The next day, Ethan was gone. Fired. Erased. His apartment emptied. His number disconnected. As if he had never existed. Isabella searched. Called. Begged. Bribed. But the city swallowed him whole. And when she confronted her father again, he only said one thing. Sometimes love must be sacrificed for legacy. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She broke silently. Months passed. The headlines changed. But inside her, something had died, and something else had awakened. She began to notice things. Whispers in the boardroom, falsified signatures, the pattern of fear that followed her father's name. And slowly, she began to rebuild what Ethan had started. The investigation he couldn't finish point one by one. She uncovered the lies. And in the end, it wasn't a man or a lover who saved her. It was her own courage. The empire that had made her would now face her wrath. The day Isabella walked into the press conference, the world expected a celebration, another Vaughn acquisition. What they got was confession and fire. She stood before the cameras, flawless and fierce, her voice steady as she revealed the truth. The offshore accounts, the illegal deals, the empire built on ruin. She burned her family's legacy live on television, and with it, her father's name. Jonathan Vaughn watched from his glass tower as everything crumbled. The daughter he had raised to obey had become his undoing. When it was over, Isabella left the city behind. No more penthouses, no more limousines, no more cages. She found herself somewhere quiet. A coastal town far from the noise, where dawn came soft and clean. Sometimes, she thought she saw Ethan's reflection in strangers. Sometimes she dreamed of the life they could have had. But she no longer lived for ghosts. She lived for truth and for freedom. On the anniversary of the empire's fall, a letter arrived. No name, no address. Just 3 words written in familiar handwriting. "You did it." She smiled, faint, fragile but real, because some love stories don't end in forever. They end in freedom. If this story touched you, if you've ever walked through heartbreak, faced the truth alone, or learned that power means nothing without peace, remember this. Strength is born from pain, and healing is the most beautiful revenge. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that move the soul, and remind us all that even in darkness, we are never truly lost.